Hello and welcome. My name is Carol Carter. I'm the founder and CEO of GlobalMindED. We are dedicated to creating a capable, diverse talent pipeline to get more women, people of color, underrepresented, any way that you can define diversity. We define it as broadly as you can imagine, into the education, economic mobility, and leadership pipeline. We have a number of different programs we do for first generation to college and diverse students. At college campuses, we generally have an annual conference when it's not COVID, but we've had a series of different events this year, and they've turned into these equity teams. So we have an equity team every month with programming for equity leaders in technology, and that's the session that you're joining today. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Lisa Neal-Graves, and I want to tell you just a little bit about her background. She is the Chief Changemaker at GlobalMindED, and she's the former Chief Innovation Officer for the Office of the Colorado State Attorney General. She's also a lawyer, and she was a recent candidate for Douglas County Commissioner. Her experience includes 25 plus years as a visionary senior technology, strategy, operations, and legal executive. With a track record of building and leading community, Lisa volunteers with community-based organizations that serve our youth, provide advice to small businesses, as well as deliver pro bono legal services. Her love for the beautiful Rocky Mountains drives Lisa's efforts, although she has also worked and lived in Shanghai, China. And her academic credentials include a JD with a concentration in tech law, ME in engineering management, and an MIS in computer science, and a BS in applied mathematics and computer science. Her background is broad and focused on technology, strategy, and implementation across a variety of industries, and is licensed to practice law in Colorado and Arkansas. As a proud HBCU graduate, Lisa has devoted her career to supporting, mentoring, and advocating for underrepresented leaders in computing, generally with a specific focus on Black women and people of color. Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Carol. I appreciate the opportunity to actually introduce to a few of my really good friends, right? So I brought my squad with me today, and I am just over the moon excited about sharing the stories of these women with the audience. So thank you. Appreciate this. The topic of this particular panel is, the Black women democratizing tech, where we create space for success. And that means a lot of things to a lot of people. But yesterday, while I was watching the inauguration, I was struck by the fact that Biden said that he was asked once, how would he describe the United States? And he said he had a single word, and it was a singular statement of possibilities. And everybody on here understands this whole word of possibilities, and democratization, that those things should come together, right? So if there are possibilities, that means that we should have an opportunity to literally have access and be able to thrive in tech. So I want to introduce you to a few of my friends who have in fact really done just that. So I would ask each of you ladies to introduce yourself and just give a brief explanation of why tech. And we'll start with you, Lakecia.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa, for the opportunity, and Carol for having me here today. I've been so looking forward to this opportunity to just be on the same, I would say, virtual screen with these amazing women. But a little bit about my background. So currently I work for Microsoft. I've been there for a little less than a year. I work in the Internet of Things space. Prior to that, I worked for about 12 years at Intel, in various roles. And I love the question, why tech? And so for me, growing up, I grew up in a small town in Florida. At the age of 12, I was this curious, a middle schooler, and my mom, as a single parent, worked a lot of jobs. But one of the things that she did was she focused on delivering what she could for her girls. And so for me, it was technology. I wanted my computer. And so she worked extra shifts. She got me my first computer. And that's where I really fell in love with technology. And so, as moms would focus on their kids, she wanted me to achieve my dreams and goals. I will just end with this statement, and really just to give the other women an opportunity to share. But I'm reminded of the quote by Marilyn Monroe that says, give the girl a pair of shoes and she can conquer the world. I'm paraphrasing. So my mom, for me, was giving me my first pair of shoes by buying me my first computer. And that computer and those shoes were really allowing me to just go to places and spaces I never thought I would and work for some of the top Fortune 500 companies in America. And so that's where technology was birthed in me at the age of 12, because my mom was willing to invest in me and my first pair of shoes. And that was my first Commodore 64 computer. I'm going to date myself on that one.
Thank you so much, Lakecia, and stay tuned. There's a lot more there. And can we, and by the way, we have represented on this panel, which I am so excited about. We've got boomers, we have Gen Xers, and we have millennials, and we also have Gen Zers. So we've got the gamut today, guys, and I am thrilled about this. So Renee, please introduce yourself.
I loved hearing that about the computer, Lakecia, a lot. So I am Dr. Renee Horton. I am a quality engineer, currently working on the Artemis project, which just fired our 4 engines for the very first time this past Saturday. And so I'm still a little geeked from that. But for me, why tech? I loved working with my hands, and I loved working with the things that went boom sometimes. But I loved learning how those things actually work. And so I think my very first experience with tech was actually us taking the Christmas lights and hooking them. And I got in a lot of trouble. My father now lives with me, so I have to be careful about my stories now. But taking the Christmas lights and hooking them to the radio and watching those lights actually being able to go with the beat and the sound. And for me, even that still hits me kind of hard because I'm actually hearing impaired, and I didn't find out until 17, so a late diagnosis. And so the idea that I was already looking for ways to be able to understand sound and not really know it, and that I was looking for something else always kind of intrigues me. My biggie was at 9, Lakecia's was a computer, but mine was a telescope. And so at 9, I got a telescope, and it just opened up the rest of the world for me. And I knew at that point that whatever it was, whether it was science or technology, I wanted to be a part of it. It was the thing that made my heart explode when I was a part of it, and made my eyes light up. And so, and I'm still like that. I still put the robots together and tinker with those with my grandson. And so I just absolutely love absorbing tech. And I'm just excited to be here with you ladies.
Thank you. Awesome. And Racquel.
Hello, everybody. My name is Racquel. I currently work as the Public Relations Specialist at SCORE, the nation's largest network of volunteer expert business mentors, where I also have the privilege of leading internal mindfulness sessions. Prior to SCORE, I held a marketing position at DXC Technology, and I am also the co-founder of Clarentel, a new nonprofit and tech-based startup working to reinvent social action and the way that individuals and corporations engage with social causes.
Awesome.
Why tech for me? Technology is the future. It's the now. It's how we communicate. It's how we connect in our day and age. So I'm really just passionate about learning more about how I can leverage technology and technological based solutions to really connect people all across the country and connect communities for social impact and positive change. So I love that technology is always changing and growing, and it forces me to keep up, and I thrive on change. So just excited to keep learning in this space.
Awesome. And finally, but absolutely not least, we have Brooklyn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brooklyn Terry, and I am a current sophomore student at Bennett College, located in North Carolina. Bennett College is an HBCU, and right now I'm interning with a nonprofit organization called iUrban Teen. And why tech for me? So when I was in 5th grade, I had the opportunity to participate in a robotics camp. And that was the first time I ever coded anything or built something. And when I was coding, I realized like the code that I put into that robot and the output of the robot, that's what inspired me. And, you know, throughout high school and middle school, I had opportunities to participate in robotics. And ever since then, I've just been, you know, interested in technology. And I love the challenge of coding, all the errors that, you know, you get, problem solving, going through those steps. that's kept me interested in tech and getting to see tech evolve over the years. You know, it never ends and it's always changing and there's always something to be involved in. So that's why I'm really interested in tech.
That's so awesome. We all have sort of similar stories, and I love that. You know, I want to get into the meat of our discussion because we don't have long, and you guys have such fascinating backgrounds. I just don't want to skimp on that. So let's just dive right in. So Lakecia, I know so much about you, right? So in fairness, full disclosure, Lakecia is my best friend, and we have met and have for a long time. Really, she's been that person that I call, and you know, we push each other up, right? We provide that extra oomph to get over the hump. And when we talk about sort of the making space for success, there is the what is it that we do to help other people along. And so one of the things that I am just so over the moon impressed by, Lakecia is the first Black person to ever serve as the TA for the Intel CEO. There had been several folks who had that role, and they were, you know, the bennies that they had coming into the role, the benefits that they had coming out of the role were incredibly different from those that you had experienced, Lakecia. But talk to us about why it was so important. And, you know, everybody was pushing for you. And Tony and I were pushing very hard right up front. So talk to us about why that was so important. Why is it such a big deal? And what was your biggest challenge?
Yeah, no, thanks, Lisa, for actually asking me that question, because I still reflect upon that experience that I had at Intel and really how transformative it was to my career. But, you know, I first want to just start off by saying, right, I mean, Black women have a lot of challenges, right, in terms of getting a seat at the table and really even getting in the room. And so, but for me, I think the biggest challenge at times, and that's where you and Tony and so many others helped me, was sometimes the mental gymnastics that we play in our own mind that really say, you know, should I put my name in the hat? Should I even, will they listen to me? You know, am I an imposter? Do I have what it takes? And so for me, that was really the biggest thing that I had to overcome. And, you know, thankfully, you know, I had people like you and Tony saying, of course you have what it takes. Of course you can be successful. And so I want to call out that many times our biggest challenges aren't external. Now I'm going to get to those challenges, but they can be internal. And we really need something you talked about earlier, and that's our squad to really help us navigate even getting to the point where we believe in who we are and what we bring to the table. The other piece is the shoes I talked about. You guys gave me the shoes, you sponsored me, right? You helped me. You helped me build a network. You helped me articulate the true value prop of that opportunity. And you sponsored me in that opportunity. I will say, you know, at first when the opportunity presented itself, I did have a few doubts, but I recognized at that moment, Lakecia, there's no other person better, more qualified than you to sit in this seat. And I began to reflect. I talk about ROAR. I have a podcast called ROAR, and there's an acronym: Reflection, Opportunity, Action, and Relationships. And so when I began to sit down and think about what I knew Brian Krasanich needed in his chief of staff and technical assistant, I said, Lakecia, you have that and then some. And so I was able to walk into the space with full confidence thinking there's no one more qualified. And so, you know, sometimes the work that it takes to get in those rooms and occupy the seat and own your voice in that room is not really, do I have the skills, but do I have the confidence and the belief in myself that I can do this job? And so to me, that's actually more than half the battle. And once I overcame that in my mind with the help of my squad, I'm like, bring it on, I'm ready. And then the other key piece that I'll talk about is preparation. And that is the action step in the word ROAR. And Lisa and I, we role played. And I'm so grateful for her because she actually walked through the interview process with me of what she believed the CEO would ask, because she had worked at that level before. And the exact questions that we prepped for was the exact questions he asked me. And so I was ready. And so I think, you know, I'm grateful for that opportunity because it really allowed every person within the Intel umbrella to understand that you can become what you put your mind to. Sponsorship is key. And it also really, I think, unlocked the possibilities in African Americans' minds that they could occupy that seat. You know, definitely not on the level as the poet laureate Amanda Gorman, or not on the level of, you know, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. But again, they began to say, if Lakecia can do it, I can do it too. And more importantly, Lakecia and Lisa will help me get there.
Mhm. That's so awesome. And, the one thing that I wanted to make sure that you talked about was this often not only do we pull ourselves out of the mix, right? You lose 100% of the chances that you don't try, right? But you also made it possible for one key thing to happen. And that was, we were trying to get you to the vice president level, right? And one of the things that had to happen was a push. And I would really love for you to tell that story, because I think that that's really important in this discussion as well, because sometimes we just accept what we're given.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I talked a little bit about, my mom being a single parent, and understanding where I came from and what was in my DNA, and also having the squad like Lisa and Tony, but also realizing I had earned the seat. And so I was not going to be denied. And gratefully and thankfully, I developed a relationship with my manager, where he and I, from the very beginning, and a lot of credit to him, and my first one-on-one with him, he said, hey, where do you want to go next? And so we began to have those conversations. But to Lisa's point, I was intentional about the dialogue. I made sure I socialized with the other folks on staff. I built relationships, and I had great sponsorship at that level where we would actually craft the narrative. Okay, here, Lakecia, you go talk to Bob, Mary Sue. Here's how we're going to articulate the conversation. Here's what you're going to ask for. And so it's super important for us to be deliberate, to be intentional. It's our career, it's our life. And so just as we might plan, I have a good friend of mine, she plans the best vacations down to the last detail. I just say we have to take the same amount of energy we apply to other things that give us joy to, hopefully our career does too, but down to that level of detail. I didn't leave anything to chance,
Nice.
to your point. And I did have to push. And I had to push sometimes against the system that didn't want me to get there. But I knew, and the other thing I'll wrap up with this is that there were days where I said, I'm out of here. Okay, I'm not going to do this. It's not worth it. And then I had to have the conversation, say, Lakecia, you're not necessarily doing this for yourself. You're doing this for those who are looking at you saying, if she can't do it, then I can't do it. And not that they would automatically say that, but sometimes we discount our ability because we see someone who we admire and we say, well, if they can't do it, there's no way I'm going to be successful. So I had to recognize that even though I might have been enduring some measure of pain and discomfort, that it was for the greater good, because we were trying to unlock an opportunity, not just for Lakecia, but for anyone who wanted to aspire to that role.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. And Renee, you blew me away when I first met you. You come to, the NASA space, right? With this, you're hearing impaired. You're the first Black woman to get a PhD in physics at the Louisiana University. What is it? Southern Louisiana University.
It's University of Alabama. LSU.
University of Alabama. I'm sorry.
On diversity.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that. So you come with all of those, and yet, rather than pushing the agenda of what you're doing in NASA, which is amazing, by the way, and you're doing some really fabulous work, and very few people get to do what you're doing. You stopped what you're doing-ish to go and say, well, what am I doing to bring others along? And so you created an organization, Unapologetically Being, and you write books for kids. I am always just so impressed with folks that can sort of do these multiple, you're like an octopus. You've got all of these things going on at one time, and you're doing them all incredibly well. I really want to talk about, and you had the opportunity to work not on the job with, but do sort of tours with Katherine Johnson.
Actually, I got to tour with her granddaughter here locally, and then I had the honor of meeting Katherine when they bestowed one of her honorary doctorates on her, and was able to be in the room with her and be able to kneel at her feet. And I was truly just in tears to understand that everything that she had done had opened those doors for me. And you don't always get to meet the people whose shoulders you are really standing on. And to see someone so frail sitting there knowing that I was standing on her shoulders, it just, even now, it still moves me to tears. And even with that emotion. Well, one of the things she said, I said, what was it like? And she said it was a job. So when you talk about not pushing NASA's agenda, the NASA is a job. That's what it is for me. It's my job. It's the job that, like Lakecia said, I prepared myself for, so that when that door opened and that opportunity was there, I was prepared for it. The person who sponsored me into the door knew that I was prepared for what was ahead, and that intellectually, I could walk through that door. Every now and then the imposter syndrome would come up for me as well, Lakecia. And one of my things, you talk about your squad, I call them my tribe. I had my tribe, and I would be calling. And, one of the things one of my girlfriends said was, you do know that white university ain't giving no black folks no degrees just to be giving them no degrees. And it was that I kind of became my mantra, that I earned that title. I earned what was inside of me. And so each time someone gives me the opportunity to be at the table, I try to take full advantage of what that opportunity is. And pushing NASA's agenda isn't about that. Because sometimes we're on different sides of the coins on how I feel about diversity and what they are doing about diversity. And so I can't keep pushing their agenda, but what I can do is I can keep preparing those that are coming behind me to be able to walk through that door with whatever shoes that they have on and kick, some tail up in there. Because that's how I look at it. Like, I'm kicking butt every single day when I'm doing what I'm doing. But if I'm preparing the ones that are coming behind me to be able to be ready for that opportunity, right? If I bring you to the table, I want you to understand that you are brought to the table because you have something that somebody needs or wants, right, in that room. But if you are, sitting in your shell and can't bring it to the table, you may miss that opportunity for somebody just to see how amazing you are. Now, I drop the ball all the time. I must have checked the calendar and the time like 12 times today to make sure I was on time for you. And so even though my octopus thing happens, it happens with a lot of intentionality, right? And so my last couple of years, I have been functioning with intention. At the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, I set goals, and I am very intentional about what those things are, even with my career. I'm part of a leadership development program now with NASA, but that was very intentional. Sitting down and having part of my tribe practice the questions with me, going back and forth, making sure that I was answering very succinct answers, but answering the question. And so just having that, so I definitely want to echo that about your squad, your tribe, being prepared. Nobody's going to give you an opportunity if they do not think that you are prepared. There is absolutely no way I'm going to bring you through the door if I did not think you were ready for it. But I also think it's my purpose at this place is to make sure that somebody else is walking through the door with me.
Nice. One of the things that you never put forward when you're talking to folks that I am always just in awe of is you never really talk about the fact that you're really hearing impaired, and that, it took a while for you to get past the imposter syndrome associated with what you thought you could or couldn't do given that particular impairment. I really want you to send that message to folks. What do you say to people who are differently abled, but really are interested in aerospace, right? Are interested in tech? How do they find, that inner confidence to do what they need to do in order to be successful? How do you democratize that for them?
That part of it. At 17, I found out that I was hearing impaired. So it was actually a late diagnosis. And the onset may have even been late as well. And it actually kind of crushed all my dreams. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a pilot. I had gone into the Air Force for my physical. They're the ones who told me that I didn't qualify. I watched them mark an X across my paper as a reject. And so at 17, everything was kind of crushed, but I had this good looking boyfriend. We got knocked up together. And then, I traveled and followed him. And while I was following him, I realized though that there was something inside of me that was just still drawing me back to science and technology, right? And it was at that point when I went back to school. I went back to school after 10 years with 3 kids, and my youngest was 2. And my baby is a girl. And so to look at her, I knew then that I wanted her to have opportunities, the same opportunities my parents were, I call peddling to me, because they would give me a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. They were giving me what they could afford to give me, right? And I wanted hers to be different. I wanted her to be able to wake up one day and say, this is what I want to do. And I'm going to walk into that. Now, I created a monster with that, because she over there telling people my Bible word for day. I said, so I get to do this, right? Didn't quite work out like I thought it was going to work out. But one of the things was when I went back to school, I had to own my hearing disability. Mm-hmm. I had to own it. And it meant studying what it was, studying what it meant to be functioning in that realm, understanding what my adaptions needed to be, understanding that no one else was going to stand up for me and ask for those changes that I needed, right? Nobody was gonna do that for me. And they tell you, you have the right to ask for these accommodations, but only I was truly standing up for my accommodations. I always tell people I'm really grateful for LSU, because their speech and hearing center is where I actually learned what my hearing loss was and how it associated with speech, so that became that. I still struggle with it day in and day out. So I'm kind of happy about teleworking right now, because putting me in this environment, I'm able to create, the type of environment I need to be successful in. And so right now, I'm just like, shoot, I feel like I'm on top of the world right now, because I can function in that and I can do the things that I need to do the way that I need to do them. For everybody else that's out there, you have to understand that nobody owes you anything. Like, I didn't think anybody owed me anything. Like, I don't need you to do anything special for me. But if you put me on the same playing field as everybody else, I will do what I need to do for you. And so it then becomes, let's give her what she needs. Let's see what she can do. And then that's what it becomes. The catch is, I'm willing to fight for what I need. I'm willing to fight for what I need to be standing on the same field that you are standing on, because I know intellectually I bring the fire. So if you give me what I need, as far as my hearing is concerned, I know that whatever it is I need to produce, I'm going to be able to produce with fire.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So now we move to Racquel. Rocky, you are non-tech person from a background perspective in tech, but you grew up in tech. And so you were surrounded by tech, and you opted to identify other ways that you could participate in this space. And what I love is that you are bringing sort of these mindful training, right, to tech in an effort to create unity and to really introduce and allow for differences in that space, in the tech space, whether it be differences as it relates to race and gender, or differences as it relates to your actual background that you're bringing to the table. It takes a lot of confidence to be in tech generally, but it takes a special level of confidence, particularly for Black women and imposter syndrome, to walk into a room full of technologists and take your seat at the table. Talk to us about how you do that, right? And how you use mindfulness as a methodology to really enable you to deliver, right? To stand and deliver, to stand in your shoes and do the right thing. So talk to us about that. What does that look like? And how do we, sort of further your efforts in that space, in that agenda?
Thank you so much for this question, and thank you for having me on this panel. Imposter syndrome is still something I'm working on. I think that's the case with a lot of people. And it's funny, even before this panel, when I was talking to you about it, I was like, are you sure this is the panel for me? And you're like, you've done this, you're this co-founder of this. And we had this conversation, and I'm just realizing it's just constantly just being confident in what I'm good at, which is communication. And just to talk about, and I love all this conversation about energy and intention. That is my whole thing. I'm so grateful to be able to lead internal mindfulness sessions, both at SCORE and at Clarentown Nonprofit. And for me, it's about three things. So it's really about self-awareness, respect, and confidence. So self-awareness is crucial for optimal collaboration in any space, in my opinion. And so I really use mindfulness sessions, which are usually just breathing and awareness exercises, to have everybody just get present so we can observe our thoughts and release negative energy, and then really approach our work with a collective positive energy. So just that unity, and that we all are having the intention to put positive energy into our work, right? And then with respect, respect for others and self is so important. So I have so much respect for the subject matter experts at any job I'm working at, but I also respect that I'm good at the work I do. And so, just respecting the work that I do, and taking the time to ask the questions to get the information I need to do what I do well. And then just closing out on confidence. Confidence is just so crucial, and that's just something that we're always all working on. For me, something that's helped me a lot is there are a lot of strong women in my family. I have so much respect and appreciation for my mother, who's worked in the tech space for 30 years, more than that. So just so much respect for her. And then I also have a mentor and a role model. Her name is Heather McGee. She's actually a political strategist and an author who recently wrote a book called The Sum of Us: What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together. And she is just so great at unifying diverse populations and creating cross-racial solidarity while remaining so unapologetically Black in herself. And I just am so inspired by that energy. So like I said, for me, it's all about self-awareness, and encouraging that in the workplace, and then respecting the work that I do and the expertise of others, and then just building my confidence in any way. So having like my Girl Squad, or a mentor or a role model, or just wearing, maybe my mom might take me somewhere and help me get a suit that helps me feel confident in the workplace. So anything that's just gonna subconsciously make me feel more confident. And then being courageous, like coming on this panel and just putting myself out there and just, being brave. So just more of that, be brave and be confident.
Well, and I think it's really also important that we talk about the fact that your nonprofit, you're the only woman out of the team of 9, which, that in and of itself requires that you show up with a level of confidence. How do you get those guys to, just respect who you are and provide you, a lot of times in tech areas, and trust me, I've got tech degrees, et cetera, and I was still told that I wasn't tech enough, whatever that meant, right? Here you are dealing with a group of technologists, and you don't have a tech background per se, but you grew up in the space, so you have it through osmosis. But how do you get them to hear you?
Yeah, so shout out my Clarentel family. Clarentel was actually started by 2 friends, also University of Maryland graduates. My friend Brandon Wallerson, who is a program manager at Microsoft, and then my other friend Justin Ferguson, who previously did data analytics at Bloomberg. And we are just very passionate about racial equity and making it as easy as possible to support the movement for Black lives. And so they approached me with all these issues about supporting the movement, saying, how can we make this easier? I know you have a diverse perspective as a woman, as a marketer, and as someone who's worked with nonprofits. And so we all have the same vision of what we're trying to accomplish. And initially, it's funny, it was easy for me to get blown off when it got to the nitty gritty things, like, don't worry about this, we'll come to you when we need the marketing deliverables or this or that. And it really took me, I didn't have the information I needed several times because I wasn't confident enough to necessarily ask the questions I knew I needed to ask. So as I got more confident in my work and realizing I actually am good at communicating concepts, I took the time to ask the questions I needed to get the answers I needed. And over time, as my confidence grew, my energy just demanded a new respect. So I think it's just, taking the time to get the information you need, and then just working on your skill set and being the best at that. So.
Yeah, I love it. When we were talking, you mentioned, your confidence is that, your confidence demands that respect. And I love that. We all need to take a page out of your book on that scenario. And Brooklyn, you, my dear, are the baby of the bunch, but by no means at all less accomplished, so to speak. You have been not only competing in robotics competitions, but winning them. And, one of the things that I really want to have you share with us is your story about those competitions and the fact that there was a time when you had an all-girls team and that team won. Let's talk about that.
All right. So it all goes back to 8th grade, middle school, where I had my first robotics class. And that's where I kind of started out, learning how to design, build, and program the robot. And in high school, that's when I started competing. So I would be on a team, and I would be the only girl on the team throughout until like my senior year of high school. So my freshman, sophomore, and junior year, I was on a team for each year, and I was the only girl. And in the class of like, let's say 30 people, I was only one of 6 girls. So I hear you guys talking about imposter syndrome, and I may have felt, I never really felt out of place, but I did feel like, wow, I wish there were like more women in here in this tech space. So yeah, I was competing on competition during competitions, and I was usually the programmer. That's where I found like that was where I thrived the most. And I really enjoyed programming and coding the robot because I was the main one who would make the robot, move, make the controls and everything like that. But yes, during my senior year, I finally had an all-girls team, and it was very, very, very nice for me. I really enjoyed seeing that the girls on my team were really interested in tech and being able to kind of mentor them in a way, and kind of teach them how to build and design and code. It was just 3 of us, and one of them really enjoyed building more than coding, and one of them enjoyed coding more than building. So it was really nice getting to see their interest in tech, and I feel like I may have made an impact on them because I, know that they're still doing robotics competitions at the high school I went to. So it was very nice to see.
Yeah, and you are, having watched you from afar, right? When you were making your decision to go to school, right, and picking your colleges, you could have gone any place. And I learned that you were thinking about going to an HBCU, and I thought to myself and to your mom, I certainly hope she chooses Hampton. And your mom was like, girl, please, she's got to choose UAPB. But you decided on
Bennett College in North Carolina, which is an HBCU, an all-women's HBCU, in fact. And it is an amazing school. And I'll tell you, I felt so very comfortable there. I'm still going, I'm just doing everything online now, but I felt so comfortable being able to see women who looked like me, who were thriving and very, very, very successful on the stuff that they did on campus and the programs that they were involved in. And I wanted to do exactly what they did. So, I would involve myself in certain activities and programs, and I'm still, thriving towards those goals.
And it's amazing because your first week, of course, we were all thinking, oh, she's so far away. And then I looked at your post on Facebook and you were leading, right? So clearly you were fine, right? Everything was great. I appreciate the stories that you brought forth. Everybody, has their own way of democratizing, and making space for success for themselves and creating space for others to come. But we know that we train people how to treat us, right? We give them those verbal and nonverbal cues as to what we need in order to not only help ourselves, but to help others who are coming behind us and to help bolster up the people that are ahead of us, right? So as we look at the final minutes of our panel, I'd really like to hear sort of a closing remark from each of you about 3 points, right? One is, what are you doing to democratize tech for women, right? What are you asking of your peers and colleagues? And then what do we need from corporations generally to ensure that not only when a person walks in the door, just as if a white person walked in the door, we make an assumption that they belong there. When you see a person of color, when you see a Black person, when you see a Hispanic person, when they walk in the door, we want them to give them the benefit of the doubt that they belong there. How do we facilitate that? And what is it that we need from corporations to ensure that that happens? So Lakecia, I'm going to start with you again.
Absolutely, I'll come off mute. So in terms of what am I doing to really democratize tech for others, it's really at the core of who I am, right? I grew up in the South, and is how do you be the best neighbor you can be? I mean, Dr. MLK says life's most persistent and urgent question is what are we doing for others? And so that's something that's really a North Star for me. And so I've always worked to be on the front lines of recruiting. I feel like it's important that people of color see a diversity of recruiters and managers who have the ability to hire and put them in the seat. And it gives them a comfort level that they can actually instantly relate. So that's one thing that I continue to do: mentor, sponsor, advocate, and really use my voice to make sure that they're implementing and they're architecting programs that allow people of diverse backgrounds, talent, skills, and ability to thrive in an environment that's not, to your point, an environment that's set up for them per se. They're not the dominant culture. I think what corporations are starting to do more of is really realize that they have a role to play. They have a role to play in society and doing the right thing with how they show up in the community and their products, and that also should be reflective of in their work environment. And so, across the last 2 corporations that I've worked for, we've started to have those courageous conversations and start to bring the leadership in the room, that needs to have these conversations. I was just reflecting on a call last week with some of my peers at work that I was fortunate. I was fortunate in my first job out of college, grad school at Motorola, that they started to have these courageous conversations. They brought in a psychologist from Portland, Oregon, Dr. Gar Bartolevin, to have these closed door sessions with predominantly white managers and diverse employees. And they really started to connect us with the notion that if you have a brain, that you have bias, and to really uncover where that bias comes from and how it can impact the work environment and those who look different than you. And so that was, 20 years ago, but we're having those conversations now. So when you say, what can corporations do? I think it's being intentional about opening up the dialogue and allowing people to truly express their authentic selves and really talk about how the work environment impacts them positively or negatively. And so I think we as diverse leaders can make sure that those conversations are happening. And we can say, listen, here's what's worked for me. Here's what you need to consider. As a new executive at Microsoft now, I'm having the conversation to say, hey, listen, there's so many people that love this company that want to come here. Let's look at executive onboarding and executive engagement, especially of diverse leaders, and maybe create an environment where they feel like they're connected, there's community. So I'll end here, but I think personally, I take it as a personal responsibility to make sure that I can bring diverse talent in the room. And I'm relentless in that. I will not negotiate that. And I will not allow people make excuses to say they cannot find the talent because it exists. And then I'm also making certain that my teams, that we have open, transparent conversations. Obviously with the Black Lives Matter movement that was predicated by tons of events that should have never occurred, many corporations are opening this up. And so teams are watching movies. They're having listening sessions, they're having conversations. So all of these things I think are really gonna move us in the right direction, where anybody, no matter their background, race, religion, whatever, can walk into an environment and feel like they belong. So I'll end there, but thank you for the opportunity, Lisa.
Awesome. Renee?
I got the first question. What was the other question?
It's what are you gonna do? What are you asking of your peers? And what are you asking for corporations? What should corporations do?
All right. So for me personally, I spend a lot of time mentoring and traveling and actually speaking. And so probably the last 2 years, I've been doing a lot of speaking on D&I, diversity and inclusion, or inclusion and diversity and exclusion, and talking about what it is to be excluded and the pain that is associated with that, and the actual mental response that your brain goes through when you are being excluded. So people understand that there's actually a psychological response to that exclusion and how you expect people to be able to work in that environment. I'm actually there to have these, to create these open, honest, and transparent dialogues within the universities. I've done a lot of universities and some companies, and I've gone in and did those as well. I think that the open and the transparency that I bring, the honesty and the transparency that I actually bring to the table, helps people to be comfortable to actually talk about this. Because I even talk about my own biases that because I see a white guy walk in the room and my bias usually is, he probably don't belong here for real. Somebody probably walked him in here. And so that is a bias I have in my head, like when I see them when they walk in, right? And I know that there are things that I too have to work on. And so I'm willing to put me on the table first, and then to help people to bring what their biases are to the table. I do hold industry and other organizations, I hold them accountable for what they are and aren't doing. And I've called people on the carpet about it. And, you know, people say, well, you're going to stunt your career. Okay, I'm okay with that too. As long as I can wake up and look at me in the mirror. There's a mirror beside my bed, so I see me first thing in the morning. And I need to know that what I did yesterday, I can hold myself accountable for it as well. But being that I'm here to open those doors for other people, I also need to be held accountable that I did every single thing that I could that day, whether it was make a connection, whether it was talk to somebody, regardless of what it was, to be able to say that that is what I'm doing. So through the books, through the mentoring, through the speaking engagements, my face on a billboard, giving up my privacy. Those are the things that I'm now doing to be able to make sure that we are actually changing that space for other people to be in. With the nonprofit, I say I want to change the face of STEM. I want it to be that you can Google, and when you Google, you don't just see some white guy. Or the stock images, you know, when I go to make a pamphlet is just some white guys. And then I got to call my girlfriends and be like, you got a picture of you doing real work? Because, you know, I just found some white guys and I don't want that on my pamphlet, right? And so I want to be able to make that change. So putting myself out there, connecting with others, and then making sure that I'm doing things like this, being on these panels, talking and giving this information away is my contribution into how I'm actually doing that.
Thank you. Racquel, I
Sorry
thought
about
we lost you for a minute. I was like, oh my goodness.
computer died, but it came back on. Just going off what Renee was saying, I think it's huge to bring honesty and transparency into the space. So just creating a space where my colleagues feel comfortable talking about sensitive issues. And then again, I know it's not for everybody, and I don't think that's every Black employees' responsibility. So I just want to emphasize that, but that is something I'm very comfortable with, creating comfortable spaces where people can have these conversations. And then also what Renee said, I'm also big on mentoring. So just encouraging young women to really just follow their passions and know that anything is possible. So just providing them with that energy and using my voice to speak up whenever I have the opportunity.
Great, thank you. So Brooklyn, it's a little bit different for you just because you're in school and you're trying to get to corporate. One of the things that I really, you know, everybody that's on this panel, we want your experiences to be different and better than our experiences. And so we want to create an opportunity for you to walk into a space knowing exactly how to sort of navigate the executive path and career management process. What is it that we can do to help you, right? How do we give you a leg up?
I think what would be amazing is being mentored and actually listening to your stories and learning from them. Like you guys talk about imposter syndrome and being confident. Like I want to learn more about that. Like how did you get to that place? And hearing these stories are very inspirational. And just, you know, having a place to grow and learn, being on a panel like this for other Black women or women of color or just women in general, being able to see people who look like me on a panel like this, being an example for them. I think that would be, you know, this is amazing. So more discussions and panels and open dialogue would be amazing.
Awesome. You know, one of the things that always sort of bothered me is people talk about sort of equality, and the whole tenets behind equality implies that you're taking something from somebody else to make sure that everybody else has an equal part. I'm not really looking for equality. In all honesty, I'm looking for equity, right? And what we know is that there is an abundance of opportunity, and we need to look at it not as a small pie, but we need to look at it as a universe of abundance and decide how we want to play and then focus on that. And so from my perspective, the what is it that I really want to do is more of some of the things that I've always done in the past. And Lakecia and I, when we were working at Intel, one of the things that we had pushed for was to have a Black women's hiring event at Intel. And it was like a speed dating event. That was probably the best event and the most successful recruiting event that the company had ever experienced in terms of just getting women of color in the door. And what we found was that they came in as a cohort, and as a cohort, we could provide them with different services, different mentoring opportunities, different groups that they could meet with as a team, and they had each other, right? Which made it easy for them to have a self-made squad. And I believe that that's really important. And many of those women, you know, I think that we had at least 75% of them that remain at Intel even today, which is huge for women coming in at executive levels at any company. Particularly Black women coming in at executive levels at any company. From a peer support, I think that we have to hold our peers accountable. And for those of you who know me, know I have absolutely no problem making the phone call and having the conversation. It is a hard conversation sometimes because people don't necessarily want to hear what you have to say, but it is the most important conversation because one of the things that happens in that conversation is that you learn from the person that you're talking to and they learn from you. And the combination of the two of you, you actually have a much better solution that you are then deploying going forward. And I think that that's crucial. From a corporate perspective, I think that the Biden promise that he made last night when he was basically, he did the appointments, when he was welcoming and talking to the people that he had made those appointments and then, you know, bringing them on board, he said to them, my expectation is that if I ever hear you speaking with disrespect to any member of this team, regardless of who you are, you will be immediately fired. That is that's a hard stance to take because sometimes your most qualified folks tend to be your least nice folks, meaning, right? And, you know, there's a friend of mine who basically told me recently, you know, Lisa, you're not responsible. You don't have to be nice. You just have to be kind. And so what we're not really looking for is people to be quote unquote nice to us. That means corporations. We're not looking for them to be nice. We don't want them to throw rose petals down so we walk on rose petals coming in the door or roll out the red carpet. What we're really looking for is kindness. We're looking for that basic self-respect, that you know, the level of respect and genuine interaction and the ability to bring our full selves to work. I thank you ladies so much for your time today. I know that this is time out of really crazy busy schedules. And so the fact that you were willing to do this for us today means a lot to me. And I am grateful, Brooklyn. I'm always in awe of what you're doing and how you're doing what you're doing. I'm just so grateful that you're at the table, and I want to try to find a way to keep you at the table so that by the time you go into, you know, sort of the corporate structure, you're so comfortable at the table that you demand respect just by sitting down. So I'm excited about what you ladies are going to bring forward. Racquel, you make me proud because I know that you're doing something that, even if it is outside of your comfort zone, you are stepping into it like a boss. Renee, I don't even have to say much for you, girl. You do you, right? And you do it so well. Lakecia, you're the kindest and most authentic person I have ever met in my life. And you never take no for an answer. So thank you for not telling me no either. So today was remarkable. I appreciate the time that you guys put forth. And for those women who are looking and listening and wondering, we are you, you are us. And this can always be what you want, right? We can figure out how to get there. And you always have a squad. You always have people who are looking and paying attention, and you just never know when they'll show up and make a request. So thanks so much, Carol, for giving us this time. And I'm just so excited that we had this group as that initial group to talk to.
Well, and I just want to say you guys are amazing. And of course, I'm not surprised knowing Lisa because I think she's incredible. But I also want to say I think it'd be really interesting. We did get our first NSF partnered grant with Morgan State University. And we're going to be doing some events with STEM leaders. And I'm thinking, wouldn't it be cool if everybody who's part of Lisa's panel led a session with some of these college folks that are educators that are influencing people like Brooklyn. And then I think, Brooklyn, it would be powerful if we can get you to lead a panel with some of the students that are in our first gen group who would love to learn from you and love to see you leading a panel of their thoughts and what they feel their universities need to do to be more inclusive places. So I think like there's all kinds of ways for us to learn from each other. And I'm 58 years old and I want to have a reverse mentor in Brooklyn and Racquel for things that I need to learn that I don't know. And there's a lot that I don't know. And I think we need to look at that idea. You know, there's a lot of older people who could be learning from our emerging, amazing talent. And we just need to, be at the table with them. We need to be curious. We need to be open. So I just am grateful that you've spent the time with us, and a lot of other things are firing in my mind based on the kinds of things you all have said that I think we can share those multiple perspectives. And Lakecia, and you know, Renee, I'm thinking, gosh, Renee, with the science area, let's get those NSF people, let's get some of those NIH people, the NASA people. It's a homogenous field. Let's have an honest conversation about the ways that the grants are done. And it's mostly people who've had former grants. And Lakecia, I think we could do some cool things with people from other major tech companies, you know, across areas, and Racquel with entrepreneurs. And so guys are amazing. It was fabulous. And we'll be sharing this widely through the networks of our students and faculty that are working with not just all kinds of students, I think, can be learning from you all, and how we can all work together to create a really productive and unified US and world. So let's make it happen. Oh, Lisa, you're on mute.
Sorry, there's a statement from Dr. Cook. And nobody says no to Dr. Cook, but Dr. Cook is saying, you know, with all of you in technology, please help her to know how you can help more African Black sisters in the beginning of their particular careers and how to bring their full self to industry as well. And she asked, how does the audience get in touch with you ladies? I know each of you have your own you've got social media sites, so you know you can share that with folks. If you want to put that in
the chat,
put that in the chat. We can make sure that that's available for folks later.
Yes, and just so you all know, for all of those who did sign up today, Celeste, by tomorrow will give you all the link for this, so that if you're at a university, you can go out to all of your colleagues within a department or your diversity and inclusion folks. We want to share this widely so that all kinds of students and faculty can be learning as well. So we'll be doing that within the next 24 hours.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies. Have a great day, and thanks so much.
Great job, you guys. So fun to work with you all. And we'll stay on for a few minutes in case anybody else who attended wanted to put in any other questions. We can get those. And for those who came late, I tried to capture some things in the chat so you could see the thread. So we can share that as well.
Nice.
Oh, and Lakecia, can you put in about your podcast? People would like to tune in.
Right.
And we can share that in our newsletter too, Lakecia, if you give us the links on that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks.
All right, everybody. You guys are awesome. And the world is now ready for all the awesomeness. Nothing has to be held back. So no holds barred.
All right. Thanks so much, ladies.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, Lisa, they were awesome.